America. Do not allow people just to say, that's ridiculous. Do your own homework. Look up their words. Frightening. Well, Hayek couldn't live with himself if he didn't write what he was thinking. He didn't know if anybody would read the book. He initially wrote the book for just the British because he saw George Bernard Shaw, a man who we now are taught in school is a genius. He could see the road that the British were traveling down. He had no earthly idea that it would take off and people would really read it, but it did take off. First, he couldn't even find a publisher. Nobody ever was like, what? Are you kidding me? They only printed 2,000 copies. That was gone overnight. Within 6 months, 30,000 copies were sold. American publishers, they were skeptical. They were also skeptical of this author as well. They said, Ayn Rand, she didn't really understand communism or socialism. She lived in Russia. Well, they didn't think it would work here in America. And ironically, when they was pitching it, they tried to get progressive icon Walter Lippmann, as evil as this guy, as George Bernard Shaw. Walter Lippmann, read his words. They wanted him to do the foreword for this book, noting that if Lippmann did it, well, it would sell thousands, and if he didn't, maybe it would only sell 900. Well, Lippmann wasn't able to write it, and so it went off, and they published very few. It was huge. The book went through 6 impressions in 16 months. It was translated into foreign languages left and right, circulated openly in the free world, and as you will find out by the end of the program tonight, underground, the underground behind the Iron Curtain, people literally risked their lives to read it. It took off here in America after Reader's Digest published a condensed version of the book in 1945. Reader's Digest had a circulation at the time of 5 million people, and the little journal was provided to every American serviceman, a home and abroad, and they read it, and they got it, and they loved it. And I think they loved it because it's easy to understand. It is, as Thomas Paine said, common sense. Things like this. A man does not and cannot know everything. And when he acts as if he does, disaster follows. Good common sense. Hayek explained that capitalism is the only system of economics compatible with human dignity, prosperity, and liberty. He demonstrated that planned economies that tried to control the nature of man through administrative rules was impossible. This is important because that's what we're trying to do now. He said it would only lead to one outcome: serfdom, slavery. The message spread like a ripple on a pond. And soon terms like collectivism, which she was against, were erased from political debate. Anyone defending government central planning was discredited. This book was like Mike Tyson in his prime, right hook to socialism in Western Europe and in the United States. But the influence didn't stop there. It has inspired political and economic leaders for decades since. Most famously, you know who loved this book? Ronald Reagan. Reagan praised Hayek. He talked about people waking up to the dangers of big government. He said this guy did it. That brings us to today. We're in trouble. We have fallen off the wagon. We don't even know what we're doing anymore. People can't defend their point of view. A few years ago, this is probably 5 years ago, I started asking myself questions, and I bet you every single member of the audience has asked themselves this. Maybe you have. How did this happen to us? How did we get here? How are we here?